Yeah, in fact, I used to do a lot of work in Cleveland, so I learned it because we drove around. Before I went back to law school, I taught computer classes to senior citizens. So
Oh,
we would, my cousin who lives now in um, Mentor, I guess it is, and he, we started a business together. He was in Cleveland, I was in Columbus, but I had to help out a lot in Cleveland. And we took these laptops in and set them up at like senior activity centers and
yeah.
living facilities and taught basic computer classes
Oh, wow.
back, yeah, back
How
before they had touch
rewarding that would
screens.
be.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that would
I
be.
wish they had touch screens back then because a lot
Yeah,
of seniors in class were trying to touch the screen and they weren't touch screens.
not then, right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do that on occasions too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I try scrolling on screens. That's fun.
Uh,
Well, if you ever come up to Cleveland and need any places to go, Erin and I are your girls. We'll give you the
We know.
good
Okay.
places.
all right. Good to know. I learned it pretty well by driving around all the different, at least to know where the senior centers are.
Yeah.
I don't think Cleveland's difficult to navigate. I've been to some cities that are very difficult to navigate. I don't think Cleveland's, but I mean, I'm also biased, I think, because
There's just a lot of suburbs. a
There
lot of
is.
small
There
suburbs. So
is.
you can drive 15 miles and go through 3 of them, it seems like.
that is true.
Right.
That is true.
Where
And it's so
Columbus has
funny.
like kind of the mega suburb, like 10 real big ones. And Cleveland has 50 real small ones.
Is Westerville big?
So true.
Yeah.
It is? Okay. Well, it's so funny because most of, meetings that you go to is, typically there or, in the Polaris area,
Yeah.
a lot that we have. And I always thought that it's so interesting. I always thought I was in Columbus, but I actually wasn't. Yeah.
Not quite. Yeah.
Not quite. Columbus.
Interesting.
All right. Well, we're a couple minutes after. If it's okay, I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Weicker. I'm with Albite Weicker, and Albite Weicker is one of the 3 partners to the Special Education Legal Clinic. And this is a private-public collaboration between Albite Weicker, Disability Rights Ohio, and the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. And the legal clinic is offered for free the second Mondays of every month at 7 p.m. So that's where you are now. And registration, which you probably know, is at lawyersforstudents.com/legal clinic. And this workshop tonight from 7 to 8 roughly is parent and professional communication. And this will be done by OCECD, Tammy Sebastian and Erin Hinkle. And this is the 4th in a series of 6 workshops. The next one will be the second Monday of June.
I know this one this time, Mark. It's Understanding ADHD.
Yeah, that's
And that's
right.
with Martha Laze.
Got it. And then we'll take a month off and go to August. And the second Monday in August is English and Spanish Services and Supports by OCECD. So a couple things to keep in mind. You will receive a handout link in a few minutes here as soon as Tammy and or Erin starts talking. I'll post that in the chat screen. And then a little bit later, you're going to receive a link for feedback. And it's very important if you could, at some point towards the end, or whenever you can get to it, if you could fill out the survey for OCECD, that would be very important. They appreciate the feedback they get for these seminars. And the other thing is, if you want to register for any of the next workshops coming up, or you may know that you can also register for an individual guidance session, which is a 30-minute session with an attorney with either DRO or Albite Weicker, our firm. You can do that on the same registration page I mentioned. And I'll put that in the chat box at some point too, towards the end of the workshop. So you have that, but you can schedule individual guidance sessions, which we currently have on the 3rd Mondays now. We do it the week after the workshop, and we do those from noon to 2 o'clock. So you get a 30-minute session, either noon, 12:30, 1 o'clock, or 1:30 And that again would be a private session, one-on-one on Zoom with an attorney, and to help you through any individual problems that you might have. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Tammy and Aaron.
Thank you, Mark. And we have enjoyed thoroughly this partnership with Albeit Weicker and Disability Rights Ohio, and connecting with you all. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in just a little bit of housekeeping for Aaron and I before I introduce ourselves and the coalition. And as Mark said, there's going to be an evaluation link. There's also going to be handouts that he's providing for you in this training. And so you will have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in there. And also at the end, we're going to have a QR code. So if you guys are tech savvy and you want to go ahead and scan that with your QR code or with your camera, because your camera will pick up that QR code, you'll have the evaluation link right there. And yes, they are very important to us. And go ahead and type in the chat today. While we're going through, we're going to be a little bit interactive, not entirely just because we only have about an hour, but we want to get you engaged and we want your feedback. So go ahead and throw your comments in the chat. With that being said, today's training is parent professional communication. It is absolutely, probably beside parents' rights that I do, is it's close up in there with parents' rights and understanding an IEP. One of my favorite trainings to do. That's because that's what we're doing all day long, communicating. And so just a little bit about the coalition. I'll introduce myself and then I'll hand it over to Aaron and then we'll bounce back to me. So my name is Tammy Sebastian. I am the statewide program coordinator for the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. I am also a parent of 2 children with disabilities. I got to rewind. I always do that. Young adult children. They'll always be my children, but they are young adults and I want to give them that respect. So my oldest is 21 and she has ADHD and executive functioning deficits. And my youngest child has autism, generalized anxiety disorder, and sensory processing disorder. And then just a little bit about the coalition. We are the statewide Parent Training Information Center for the state of Ohio. So under whose idea, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, every state has to have a Parent Training Information Center. We are that for the state of Ohio. We help parents to become more effective representatives and advocates for their children and students. We also empower students along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Aaron. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Aaron.
Thanks, Tammy. My name is Erin Hinkle. I am the information specialist and trainer for West Central Ohio. I cover 11 counties. I have 2 children. I have a 17-year-old son who's on the autism spectrum, and I have almost a 12-year-old daughter. So, I enjoy this work and helping to empower parents and give them a voice and give them the information they need to get services for their kids. So I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you, Aaron. I thought I seen something in the Q&A, but I could be wrong. Oh, okay. It's all right. It looks like Mark grabbed it.
Yep.
Okay.
There was just a question about the individual guidance sessions and what the cost structure were for those. And the answer is they're free.
Awesome.
Better.
All right. Thank you. Yes. And we're free. I should say that I'm glad you
Yes, we
said
are.
that. So everything that we provide is free. But we do really rely on those evaluations to keep us going. So with that being said, I'm going to just jump right in. And so when we talk about parent professional communication, we're, there was an assumption. So if we go back to, and I don't know if many of you and what your background is, but if we go back to when we talk about IDEA or Public Law 94-142, it was assumed, and we're going to be talking a lot about that during the communication training, that parents were equal partners in their child's education. But in IDEA 2004, there was more emphasis put on that, and we clarified that. And Congress really relied on research, which proved that parents were critical to their child's success in school. And we talk about meaningful involvement and as equal partners and what meaningful involvement looks like. And we'll go ahead and talk about that a little bit more as we go through the training.
So what is communication? It's an idea, it's a way of sharing information through various methods and techniques while eliminating assumptions and misconceptions that place barriers in a way of effective communication. Many times we come to the table already having some bias and having some ideas about the other party, and really trying to push those aside, and you're really there to communicate and get the best solution for your child. So that idea, that transplant, just a way of sharing information and being open is really the best way to come to the table.
Yeah, Erin, and I always say too, when there is not communication, you're going to have assumptions because that's all you leave that other person is to assume. So
Right.
it is very important that we clarify and we clear up and eliminate those so we don't have those assumptions.
Right.
And we're going to talk about different ways we can do that. Well, and let's talk about bias. So what role does bias play in communication? So go ahead if you want to, as we're going along. Actually, I encourage you to type in the chat. So is communication the same? So let's talk about male to female. Is communication the same male to female? Go ahead and type in the chat. What do you think? Is it the same? I know I'm gonna, I know I'm walking into something with this.
Something. And is it the same for young and old?
Yeah.
Also, the different generations and how that collides.
Interesting. And I'm seeing in the chat, no, and not
Yeah.
always. Right.
Right.
Oh, right. Exactly. Thank you guys. You guys are on it. Right. Young to old, generational varies. I love that,
does.
Terry. 100%.
Yep.
Everyone is different. But what are some of the ways? Can you guys give me some examples of maybe what are some of the ways that male to female is different? Give you guys a quick second. What are some of the ways? Oh, females may be more indirect, right?
That's true.
To add, communication can be different depending on the parent's job. If parents are teachers, therapists, the communication tends to be different. True.
Cool.
Oh, love that, Lori. We all come from with our own backgrounds and our own experiences.
So
Men
true.
don't
Men don't listen. They don't filter. Non-diplomatic. That's funny,
True.
Terry.
True.
Can be.
Perception. I love that. Perception. And we're going to talk about that, Sandra. We're going to talk about perception. And moms tend to be the default parent. Interesting.
Yes, that's so true. So often
Yeah.
we're the ones in that meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or go ask mom how we process information and how we communicate.
Yes.
That's true. Priorities and struggles will differ sometimes dramatically.
It's true.
One more, we're not going to stay here forever because we could probably do this all day, but here's an interesting one too. We can talk about state to state, culture to culture, and country to country. That all kind of, goes hand in hand. A lot of times, when we talk state to state, and actually I use this as, you could do city by city. I've actually been told up here in Northeast Ohio that we tend to talk faster than people that are down in Southern Ohio. Even Central Ohio have told me I talk fast. So the speed of my speech may differ.
They even said you had an accent too, Tammy, which we thought was funny.
Yeah, someone said it was like a New York accent. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, so, there's those ways. And then one more I want to quiz you guys on, and I know this is really going to be fun. What are young to old? What are some, talking. I'm not good with my accent. Young to old, can you guys throw some
Differences.
different ways from young to old? I mean, come on, we got technology is the biggest piece, right?
Yes.
Slang,
Right.
yes.
Mhm.
And you're not allowed to use it, according to my adult children,
Okay.
because it can be cringy if your parents use it,
Yeah, it's true.
apparently. Slang, um, I mean, communication and just technology, um, that is, Mark was just talking about that when we were coming on here about senior citizens with computers and learning
Right.
tradition. Yes,
I
yes,
work with a lot of grandparents, and a lot of them have a very hard time sending me their documents and PDFs and emails, that we're doing it more a traditional way because that's what they're used to and that's what they're comfortable in too. So,
yeah. And then I'll just use this example and we'll go ahead and I love that. Oh, wait, some of us have been on computers for decades. Oh, that is
that
true.
is true.
You know what?
Terry's right.
We can't just say just because you're older, you don't know computers. You are
That's true.
absolutely right. That is definitely an assumption.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking us on that. Um, however, there is, I will say this, I was raised in a house where it was a multi-generational house that I lived in. I lived with my grandparents and uncles. And one of the things the older generation was is you didn't talk about things outside of the house. What happens in this house stays in this house. So that differs. Now we have a generation of we share everything. Not everyone, but a lot. So those are different ways that that can differ. Thank you guys for interacting. That was fun.
That was good. So communication, really, it's a team activity. Everyone has their own pattern of communicating. Communication is behavior. So the way someone is behavior, they are communicating to you. If that's, just how they're sitting, or it doesn't have to be actual talking, but participation in the communication process is directly related to how much energy we invest in resolving the issue at hand. So if someone seems disinterested in your conversation, they may not want to really get to a resolution. And they may not be as into it or as invested. So yeah, how much energy that's in that meeting, definitely, and how, you know, invested you are, and what priority we place on the issue, and the respect we have for those with whom we are communicating. I think it's huge that when you are in a meeting, that there is respect. You may not always agree, but that things stay respectful and professional.
Agreed. So why is it so difficult?
Mhm.
Well, it's often unpredictable. We can't always know what that conversation, and believe me, we probably all rehearse them in our heads, and then it never goes the way we think, right? Or we should have said that, I should have said this. So it's unpredictable. Um, it's really part of our personalities. And I don't know if we think about that a lot.
Right.
So, taking that into account, that it's kind of, it's within us, and sometimes that's hard to change or hard to learn, and we'll talk about learned skills and communication. Meanings are unique to each of us, and earlier, a couple slides before, we talked about that meaningful participation. And what I will tell parents and school districts is, when you're talking about what's meaningful communication, it's really good to have a discussion around what that looks like for each person,
Yeah.
because that's going to mean, like this says, meanings are unique. That might mean something different. But if we know that, and we talk about that, and we put that on the table in the beginning, then we know what that looks like for one another, and then we're more inclined to be a team to do that. Sometimes too little communication takes place. We're not sharing. We see this in IEP meetings, ETR meetings, school meetings all the time, where maybe things aren't being shared, or assume. When we talk about assumptions, assume that there's that knowledge, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. Or too much communications taking place. I've seen both ways, because we're talking about parent and professional. We want to make sure that both
Yep.
sides are getting equal. And I've seen it both ways, where too much communication be taking place, and I can see emails that are going back and forth, and it looks like I walked into an email war, and
Yeah.
there are 4 paragraphs, and at that point you can read each of those coming back, where that you can even see where the communication is being lost. So, and it may be too much communications taking place in not the right format.
Right.
So there's that. And then ineffective communication takes place. And then knowing when we are being effective. And we have some tips later on in the training for that.
So, just questions that parents should ask themselves. Do I communicate quickly with professionals when significant changes occur with my child? So, am I telling people up front if there's a change in, diagnosis or whatever is going on with your child? Okay, this is going on. Do you communicate without undue emotion and treat each professional as an individual with respect? That is huge. Just respecting everybody and trying not to be too overly emotional. It can be really tough when you're the parent and this is your child, this is your baby, and to not get really worked up. You can get worked up after the meeting, but trying to keep that composure and just keep yourself together so you guys can have an effective meeting. Do I feel I'm an equal partner with the professionals at the table? And I think really stating like I am an equal partner. I am a part of the IEP team. We are all here to make decisions today, and really just making kind of sometimes reminding the professionals that I am an equal partner here. I have certain knowledge about my child that nobody else has, and I'm an important person here. And when I make a commitment, do I follow through in the agreed upon manner? So at the end of the day, whatever the group does agree upon, that we're all going to go through um, and follow through, and that we're not falling down in that. So
And don't you worry, we're not going to say questions to ask parents without saying questions professionals should ask. And
the
I
other
think
side,
this is a great, and you will have a copy of this PowerPoint. I think this is great if you take a binder into meetings as a parent or
mm,
a folder, whatever you bring, if you have to put
yep,
it in your calendar. It's a great little thing and it's a great checkpoint to come back to,
mhm,
during that process. And you'll be in um, plenty of IEP meetings, I'm assuming, or 504 meetings. This is not just about IEPs, 504 meetings,
right,
school meetings. So this is just a really good checkpoint. I like the one too, and I always go back to this about communicating without undue emotion. And we will talk about this more when we talk about the different styles. However, I always share with professionals too, that when we're holding these meetings, if we do understand that there is a lot of emotion, plan some time in the beginning of the training to allow
mhm,
for that emotion to come out in a productive way.
right,
Because if you don't, I'm guaranteeing you it's going to seep out through that entire meeting. And
right.
I've seen that where we can't make it through a meeting because that parent has not been able to get those emotions out. So maybe even planning some time for that, but we'll talk
Right.
a little bit more about that too. I'm sorry, is that cut off? Can you guys see that
A little
now?
bit.
Um,
There.
Questions professionals should ask themselves, and I would encourage professionals to have a little
Yeah.
chart too to take with them for checkpoints. So, do I discuss and explain information in language rather than using acronyms and jargon? And I think I seen somebody in the chat talk
Mhm.
about that. We talk in
Yep.
acronyms, educational jargon, and then we need to be aware too that if there are families that don't have English as a first language, so for us, if that parent has never even been exposed to these acronyms, but then you take language on top of that, it's
Right.
even 10 times harder. Uh, do I believe parents are an equal partner in the educational process? Just like we said, I think
Mhm.
Aaron brought up a good point. A parent actually verbalizing and saying, "Hey, I am an equal partner." And we talk about this a little further on too. When we're saying equal partner, we're not saying equal in knowledge across the board. We're saying an equal member of the team. The parent brings a unique perspective, and that
Right.
unique perspective is that child and has a
Right.
lot of information. And we need to honor that. Do I schedule meetings at a convenient time and place for everyone? We know under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, when we are scheduling IEP meetings, it has to be at a mutually agreed upon time and place. So are we doing that? Are we making a convenient time and place for everyone? Do I ask questions that allow the parents to express their feelings? So that's going back to the parent about the undue emotion. So
Mhm.
are the professionals giving the parents that opportunity to express their feelings and concerns? And do I make sure I share copies of information discussed in the meetings? Provide data. Parents do like data. We like to see what is supporting your decision, and it's really helpful for you and clears up a lot of miscommunication.
Right. So there's three elements of communication we're going to talk about. Really, is a relationship between two people, and you all need to feel equal, independent, and obligated. So an equal, we all place value. We're equal in our thoughts, in our values, and what we're coming to the table to express. So, you're going to take what I'm saying with equal weight. Um, and, we may have differing opinions, but that is okay. We both can be independent and have different opinions, but still get through that communication process. And you're going to have respect for each other and respect for what is being shared, the data that's being shared. So, to be equal, independent, and obligated, and to be respectful about the decisions that you're making for this child.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. And I just want to go into the Q&A. Terry brought up a good
Mm.
point about the emotional side and that it takes time to learn, and it is the learned skill.
It
And she
does.
wants to know what a parent can do. So I'll throw this out to you and then I can bounce back in on the question. What can a parent do to to prepare for this? And is there a way of coaching and mentoring parents? Is that something OCECD can do at a regional basis? Similar how districts receive coaching to improve. Maybe you can break this all down into several modules from novice to expert. So
Nice.
thank you, Terry. Was that too
Yeah.
much? Did you want me to go back to the?
Well, and I think it's something we can teach, and I think it's something we can learn. And I know a lot of what I did early on is you really read that ETR, cried it out, read everything, got emotional about it, and then came back and said, okay, now what are we really doing? What are the real skills? I think sometimes you need to feel that emotion first and then go back in and say, okay, I'm going to get my head on and go through it. I know I even had parents, we had a group, especially when the ETRs, the IEPs start flowing. And we would all kind of talk and kind of be like, oh, it's going to be okay. And you're going to get through it. And you did. So you
Yeah.
find other ways to help mentor other parents mentoring parents, like a parent to parent network. That really helped me, and it helped other parents around us kind of get through some of those tough challenges when you're reading those ETRs and those IEPs, and it can be tough.
Yeah. And I would just say, to speak for the coalition, that is a essential, crucial part of our job. Is we are helping parents to become effective advocates for themselves. We do not stick around. We are there. Actually, the parents, we are just kind of guiding them based on what their needs are and what the supports they dictate. And
Right.
so we are teaching them along the way to, that we are going to kind of blend out of the picture. So we are teaching them along the way those effective skills, and helping to build them. Also, I wanted to say, not only is the Ohio Coalition, that we have all our regional offices across the state of Ohio, but some districts do have parent mentors.
Yep.
Um, and you can also look at, I think they have their own website now, but I think we still have stuff on the coalition for the parent mentors, and how you can contact them or to see if you have one in your district. And they are also providing that along the way and
Support.
helping you
Right.
learn those skills, and how to approach. And we do have communication tip sheets that are part of the PowerPoint tonight, so that's part of it. But absolutely, and then we are always developing new trainings modules. So I'm glad you put
Never
that,
know.
Terry. That's a good consideration to think about with communication. So yes, we absolutely do that at a regional level, 100%. All right. So now we're going to talk about the 4 types of communication. And starting off with phatic. So phatic conversation is probably one of so especially when you're going into a tense meeting about your child, I cannot tell you how meaningful this kind of conversation is. It really helps to build
Mhm.
relationships. It can help diffuse some tense, situations. And it usually comes in the form of just that small talk. I always use the example of, like, oh, or Erin, I think you've always said, how's the weather? Well, also another thing I say too, if you want to make it personal, if you know
Yeah.
that family has other family members that go to the school or went through the school system. How's Johnny? How's Johnny doing? You really want to build that and make them feel comfortable, especially because typically the parent is coming in to the district. It's not vice versa usually. And so they're really at your house, if you will. And you really need to make them feel welcome and at home.
It can be kind of scary going into these meetings and, everyone's there and they're a professional and, you're coming in and just talking about like your other kids, or maybe there was a game on TV the night before. All of those things sometimes really just, you can feel it in the room. It kind of just brings it down. It's like, it really brings the pressure down in the room. So,
Yes,
yeah, sometimes you don't think that's important, but it actually it's very important to get a meeting started.
it
And then
is.
the other type of communication, cathartic, it's an emotion based communication, and it could be from anger to joy. Extreme responses are usually part of this type of communication, but it's difficult to hold an effective meeting or conversation when this method is used. So, and this is just, kind of checking yourself. If you're in a meeting and it's starting to get kind of contentious, and, maybe stop the meeting for 5 minutes, walk out, get a, drink of water, kind of bring that pressure down so you can go back in and have that conversation, because this can be a roadblock, this type of communication, to really moving forward with your district
Yeah,
and the
and I'm glad.
district people too. If they feel like they're getting too tense, you know what? Sit down a minute, realize that, check it.
Yeah, and I think we always kind of shy away from when it gets, when everybody's cathartic in the meeting and we shy away from ending the meeting. And I don't know, because the more we carry it on, I feel like we stay in that cathartic state
Right,
and we're not being effective, but we just keep moving on with the meeting. So
right.
I'm not saying it would be ideal to do that every time, but I've also seen us shy away from doing that. And I think you bring up a good point, Erin. It's okay. Or maybe even if we just have to pause for a little bit and then
Right,
come back. Everybody
right,
take a break and then come back.
right.
And then informational. So this is really what we want to operate in, right? Is that
Mhm.
informational. This is that give and take. It's really the most effective type of communication. It's really speaking for itself. It's really fact based. And it fosters sharing of ideas, both from professionals and families, and it comes with solutions. And I think that's a great place to think always when we're looking at addressing things is okay, and especially if we're presenting a concern, let's have some solutions and ideas to facilitate that conversation. And it really moves us away from placing the blame, because it's in the information, it's in the data, and it's based on concrete data and the issue at hand. We're not getting caught up in all those other things. We're
Right.
focusing on that information.
And persuasive, the I am right, you are wrong type of communication, that, to convince other people what you're thinking is the right way to think and they're incorrect. Little really gets accomplished with this type of communication, and really walls get built. So then people really don't want to listen. So this, we kind of want to stay out of this type of communication. And it can be hard to recover if you get to this point that you don't want to, you come to an impasse. So yes, you don't want to get here.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say each type of communication, as we just talked about, those has its right place in the right situations. So it's always
Right,
about the right, it's always about when the right time and place, right?
right,
Um, However, making sure people are communicating using the same type and at the same time is really important if we
right,
can do that. And we can get better. Again, we're going to talk about it. It's a learned skill by identifying what type of communication a person is using. So um, we can move forward and develop and actually, we can move forward and accomplish the task if we are looking to identify what type of communication that other person is using, and then
Right.
kind of aligning with that.
Right.
Obviously, we don't want to both get cathartic.
Right.
So-
Right.
And then we're going to talk about the 4 methods of communication.
Communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 4 basic methods used to communicate or transplant or transfer ideas in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And then it's funny, I love this quote, we hear only half of what is said to us, understand only half of that, and believe only half of that.
Yes. Oh, I think I did this. I think I broke this down, and I'm not a math person, but for you math people, so if you're only hearing half what is said, I think I did in percentage. If we're looking at 100%, we're at
Right.
50, right? Understand only half of that, we're down to 25. Believe only half of that. Well, you guys see where we're going with that.
Yeah.
So we're walking away with very minimal.
Little. Yeah.
And I actually just realized that I was supposed to do that slide, and I apologize.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. We can flip. You want to take this one, or do you want me to?
No, I could take it. Okay, so reading, and we wanted this to be a little bit interactive with our audience. And if somebody would like to unmute and read our first line, the Jim Hunts, and if someone would be a volunteer and read that, that'd be awesome.
Oh, wait, are we on a webinar? We can't see
Are we?
everybody.
Can they?
Yeah.
I can't.
I think I'm going to have to volunteer because I'm the
Okay.
only other panelist.
Okay. I didn't know.
Okay, so
The
we
first
need you,
line,
Mark. Yeah.
Jim hunts, but he does not shoot does. Does.
Oh,
You got me.
We're glad you said that.
Oh, I should have read it forward.
No, Mark, you walked right into our trap.
Oh, man.
and then, can we have you read the second one too?
Yeah. Now I'm going to have to go slow.
He's going to do better now.
Yeah.
That creaking sound made me wonder if this building is sound.
Yes.
There you go. You couldn't
Got
get that one wrong. So,
But
thank
yeah.
you, Mark.
Yeah.
But depending on how you read it, there's different meanings and, how we can trip up in communication. And so that was just kind of to show that. So but
Yeah,
thank
you
you,
could-
Mark, for reading that.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And you can go down and see how that goes. Like the
Yeah.
dog dove to the ground to eat the peanut. So I love this part because it really gets people to think how that looks.
Right.
And then really quick, I want to flip over to the chat because I did see somebody say that they believe the SST webpage, SST 11, but I believe a lot of them do have
Mhm.
acronym soup document, which explains all them very well about acronyms. And it's been a lifesaver for this person who's commenting. So I'm glad to hear that. We also have an acronym document on the coalition's website. So, but thank you very much for sharing. Yes, we always need that. And so one word can make a difference, as you just seen, Mark.
Yeah.
Very, very much fed right into what we needed him to do. So words have specific meanings. One word can change the whole meaning of a sentence or idea being shared. And I'm going to go back to this. Think about this for our families where English is not their first language. And how difficult that can be. That can be very difficult when we're talking about translators. Any sign language, that is all very important. So really, really think about that on the level that it is for us, and then take those other factors into account and how much more challenging that can be. Skimming or selective reading can often prove an ineffective way to gather information. I am here to tell you, if
Mhm.
you are a parent or a professional writing those emails that I just spoke about, the 6 or 7 paragraphs,
Yeah.
I'm going to guarantee you there's skimming and selective reading going on.
Right.
So you want to make sure, that's why we want to be informational, we want to be factual, because we want people to read or communicate with us. And sometimes skimming is a coping mechanism for individuals with disabilities too. So I don't want to, that sometimes that is. So just be aware of that. And the words may shall, and will are discussed at great length when developing laws. So these words are chosen for a reason. And I'm gonna probably throw Mark here, but Mark is an attorney because those are written the way they are.
Right.
May, shall, and will. And also, some things are left for interpretation for an impartial hearing officer. That's how we get case law and in other courts of law. But there are some like will is kind of, you will do this. May is kind of open for interpretation. So those are some that we like to draw attention to when we're talking. And IDEA 504 is filled with a lot of language like that.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I'm not going to sit here and talk about acronyms and then throw those out without telling you or assuming you know what they are.
So writing is just another piece of communication, emails that you're sending to people. Just make sure that they're fairly concise, not too long, so people get lost in your message. Letter writing, if you really are serious about something, just that real formal letter can be very effective when communicating back and forth with your school. Like notes and lists, I always say to parents, and I always do when I go into my IEP meetings, I bullet down what I would want to say in that meeting so I don't forget. When you go into a meeting, sometimes if it's not all written down in front of you, you forget to say things or bring up things that you've been thinking about, or you really want answers to. So get those bullets down, get those notes together before you go into that meeting, and then you're prepared. So just being prepared and being concise.
And there's a quick pro tip that you could just do yourself. You don't need a template for. You could just write down 3 columns, just, do 3 columns on a piece of paper, put what you're asking for, what they said, and when it will be done.
Right.
And that's a great tool and easy to whip up, right?
Right.
That's helpful, and to keep communication going. And even after the meeting, so you can follow up with that. So use wording. We're going to talk about this. We're going to keep talking about that professional jargon or medical terms if you're talking about medical items. But use wording everyone can understand. Remember, under the law, that we have to make sure that it is understandable to the parent. So make sure that you're using wording that everyone knows. I think Erin just brought this up. Bullet list your thoughts so they are clear, sequential, and in order of importance. A lot of times I just need to bullet my thoughts to even get an idea going. So that's, you could leave them there, but I think bulleting your thoughts, you can use that sort of like a Venn diagram, just getting your thought, organizing your thoughts. Here, we'll bring this up. Terry called us out earlier about assumptions. This is in a different way though, but never assume a person's understanding of a topic. We also don't want to be demoralizing in that either, but we want to make sure that everybody that, we explain what we're talking about, never assume that they have an understanding. And to be honest with you, I can just call myself out right now. I am assuming that everybody understands what IDEA is, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that is the law that governs children with disabilities. It provides, the identification for special education. And so that is very important. We cannot assume that everybody came on this webinar today having that knowledge. So great point. I was just leaving it for that, by the way. No. And so when in meetings or on phone calls, write everything down. This is huge. Times, names, locations, comments. It really helps clarify statements. I cannot tell you how many times in situations where, I'll give you 2 examples, where it could be the parent is in the school volunteering. Sometimes we have a lot of parents that might be paraprofessionals and work in the school, or, might be in the lunchroom. And so you want to make, and vice versa, it could be the parent approaching the professionals too. And that's great. You want to facilitate that communication because it builds relationships, but sometimes it gets lost. And so it's great to follow up with an email. You can say per our conversation. It does not have to be adversarial. You could even say, I just want to be clear. I wasn't sure if I heard it right, and just make sure that you're documenting that. And then also the times and the names are very important, because a lot of times they'll be like, well, who did you talk to? Who said that? So very important.
And then speaking is one method of communication where the speaker assumes the most and is in control of the communication and the conversation. Words and phrases common to areas, professions, and cultures are used without hesitation. Make sure you know who your audience is. If you are working with someone who's, English is not their main language, and you have someone in the room that's translating, make sure you're speaking, a little bit slower, maybe thinking about the words and choices you're making so that can be translated easier. Even the rate of your speech. Sometimes people, you talk really fast and they don't understand you, and you just want to make sure that you're staying, that communication is steady and people are understanding, and don't assume that listener knows all the acronyms and idioms and all the educational terms that get thrown around. Really make sure you double back and, do we understand? Everybody gets what we're saying, and just really making sure that we're all being transparent and understanding what's being said.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing up the translator point too. I can share with you a personal experience. I had the opportunity years back to attend an all Spanish speaking school. And I went in as a support with another colleague who actually is bilingual. There was a translator there, but everybody was speaking Spanish during that meeting, except for me. And my Spanish is nothing. I have no, I mean, I can pick up on in context. And I have to tell you, I left that meeting so emotional, so upset, because I felt like I couldn't really be there to support that parent, even though she had other people there to support her, because by the time everything was translated to me, they were already moving on to the other. I felt like I'm not going to add that now, because they've already moved on from that, and I'm just getting that. So, not just talking about the rate of speed, but also, if there is a translator, and that doesn't have to, I mean, that could be, not just for spoken language, that could be for ASL as well.
Yeah.
So just make sure that we are reminded of that. So thank you, Erin. So we talked again earlier about different meanings, same words, different meaning. So here you see a birthday cake and a sentence. So I'm going to read this to you a couple of different ways. You go to the store and pick up the birthday cake. You go to the store and pick up the birthday cake. You go to the store and pick up the birthday cake. We have, depending on our speech, depending on how we say it, could be directional. You go to the store and pick up the birthday cake, or you go to the store and pick up the birthday cake. So it can have a lot of different meanings.
Yeah. And then listening. Remember, each person, they have their own set of rules and how they listen. So to communicate effectively, we need to know and understand their rules and develop a team effort to create a set of rules for team communications. When you're in that meeting, you're really truly listening, and you're giving feedback to that other person. I am listening, I am understanding. It's active listening, and the whole team is really listening and hearing what that person has to say. And then you're giving that communication back to say, yes, I'm here, I'm vested, I am listening. So it's a huge piece of it too.
I love that. Yes, definitely. And so techniques for communicating. Again, you're going to see that specific jargon, the profession specific jargon. Again, we're going to talk about that. The meaning of words mean different things to different people. Tone cannot talk about enough about tone. And you heard that in the birthday cake slide that we talked about. So tone sends a stronger message than words.
Mhm.
So we have to, you've ever heard it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And then body language. And this is so very interesting because I think the jury's out still on what we all feel about the body language during our virtual ride through COVID.
Oh.
And yeah, and so I've heard some people say that they feel like that body language was missing, and they weren't feeling that at the virtual, where I feel, and maybe it's your focus, but I feel like I was more zoned in on body language, because that's all I seen was somebody in a
Mhm.
box. I couldn't look at the rest of the room. I couldn't see
Right.
and look at other things. So I was very aware of people's body language. And as if you see here, 55% of communication success really depends on those nonverbal cues. Hard part about that is that not always what we think they are, right? So we can assume that, if somebody, and I've said this too, most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time, but a lot of the time, crossing your arms in front of your chest could convey you're being defiant, or you're defensive, or you're resisting something, aggression, or you're being closed-minded about it. But a lot of times when I do this, I'm focusing harder. I've caught myself doing that. So while we rely on those, it's really, I think we really need to talk about what, that does look like for other people. And we can't always assume by the body language that's what they're saying. Another thing could be, if you're wringing your hands, you might, there might be anxiety, or you're getting, you're really scared about something. A steady stare, if somebody's just,
Mhm.
staring at you,
Mhm.
that you're trying to intimidate or control or dominate the situation. Or, doing this could be like you're frustrated, you're impatient. So those are some of the examples I'm sure you guys can throw. And if you want to throw some examples in the chat, but I'm sure there are tons of examples when we talk about body language that you could share.
And, expectations of the communication, such as the goal of the conversation and what will be accomplished, sometimes going in beforehand and saying, okay, this is really what we want to get accomplished today. These are the things, and putting that out there, that this is why we're here. And, and give enough time to clearly define, and solve the problem. So if you really need to be in that meeting for an hour or two, don't allot a half hour and speed through it, and then you lose communication and you lose something in that meeting. And so a lot enough time. And then perception, you may have assumptions and be prejudging in the meeting, like, well, they're not going to give me, this or that, and I'm asking for. And don't go in that way. Go in saying, listen, we're going to go in, we're going to look at the data, we're going to find out what we need to do, we're going to work as a team, we're going to be open-minded, and we're going to give each other enough time to get it done.
Yeah. And that perception piece, what do we say about perception? It's reality, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people
it's
tend to perceive things in the way they tend to believe.
right.
So that also builds barriers when we're talking about communication.
And
We
yeah,
have
and if you really believe the meeting isn't going to go well, it may not go well because you're going into it that way. So
right.
always go in like, no, we're going to go in, we're going to figure out a real solution, stay positive,
Yes,
because that really, you will bring that into the meeting with you.
absolutely, 100%. Thank you, Erin. So we talked about this earlier. See, we walked right into all this. We talked about it's really a learned skill, like Terry was saying. And that is something that we can support definitely at the coalition and parent mentors if you have in the district. And you can do as well as a parent. I mean, there's so many things out there. There's always the opportunities in these meetings to practice these skills.
Mhm.
So one of the things that you really want to do is you want to know what you want, like Erin said, but know what you want and go in there positive, looking for a good outcome. Know what you want and bring solutions.
Mm.
That is the best way, because a lot of times if there's not solutions, it can put people on the defensive,
Right.
and not just as a reaction. So it's
Mhm.
really helpful if you can bring some solutions that they can actually consider. Find out what you're getting and change what you do until you get what you want. Sometimes it's about us changing and how we're presenting that information. So again, just practice, keep practicing in your meetings.
So just even conversation generating words. My biggest thing when I go into meetings is keep asking questions. Tell me more. What does this mean? When is this going to happen? Where is it going to happen? What's going on? And all of these questions, if you keep asking these questions and getting that opens up the conversation back and forth, and you can expand on topics too. Oh, give me more information on this. Please clarify. And it's amazing how much more you get when it goes into questioning mode.
Yeah, and on the professional piece of that, some of those things that you just mentioned on the slide. So tell me more about that. That is always a good a piece for a professional to get parents to clarify a little bit more. Or is this what you mean? Having that, I mean, is this what you mean is a really good, I mean, we should be
Yeah,
utilizing that almost at every single meeting we have. And I love, can you expand on that? And sometimes we can't always, but I think that
right.
that's another a good place. So, and then this, we're going to go, our next slide goes a little bit deeper into it's SIER. And it's an acronym, but we're going to explain that acronym in a minute. So don't worry. So, is listening a skill or is it something you're born with? And so we need to talk about, so I know you believe, I'm going to read this. I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I am not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. And we're going to talk about this, just so think on that. We're going to talk about this in the next slide.
So sensing, so acknowledge what is being said, pay attention, interpreting, show understanding when you're, dealing with someone. Everyone is trying to do their best. So really try to get to the root of, am I understanding what the situation is? Am I understanding how you're feeling? Evaluating and getting that clarity to aid in making that information being, shared clearer. So, hey, do I need to, you know, clarify this situation or, um, you know, define certain acronyms just so that the family can really understand what is going on and responding and summarizing and review the statements that have been made and say, okay, let's, for clarity's sake, I'm going to summarize our meeting. I'm going to go through everything. Are we all on the same page? So SIER, these are just all the different ways that we're communicating and bringing it all together.
Yes, and I'll just jump in and say too, as professionals, if you use this, and parents too, some of these things, some of the like in sensing or interpreting, if we don't say these with intent, real intent, they can come off patronizing. So
Right.
the intent has to be there. We just, we don't want to say, oh, it's hard to feel caught in the middle. There has to be that intent behind it, or we're going to cause more of a situation.
Right.
Be clear, and I've seen that happen, to be honest with you.
Mm.
And so that's, when we're talking about it being a learned skill, well, but there needs to be that emotional piece connected to that and wanting to, like Erin's been saying, wanting to be a part of the team, wanting to resolve issues, wanting to clarify and have communication. So with that being said, and I know we're rounding up to 8 o'clock, we're just going to we're coming on the last couple slides. And so if you just bear with us, it be clear and well defined. It is the responsibility of everyone on that team to be an active participant in the communication process. How can we do that? We want to eliminate distractions. I cannot tell you, and this again, parents, professionals as well, a parent scrolling on their phone their entire time is not being, is adding a distraction. Having people coming in and out of the meeting, the custodian walking through. I mean, we have to be present in that meeting, and all of us have to be there and honor each other's presence, and eliminate as many distractions as we can. Ensure that the information being shared is clear to both the person sending and receiving the information. And one way to ensure that is to plan ahead, and we've talked about that. So Erin's going to just give you, we're not going to go over this thoroughly, but you'll be able to see.
Yeah, and yeah, when you go into a meeting, get everything together and get your thoughts together, and really, what direction do you want this meeting to go in? Do your introductions. What's the new information that's coming in? You may have doctor's information or something personal that you need to share with the group. Don't hold on to that. Make sure everyone is there, and is aware if something has changed with your child. Review all the old data. So that's all the old progress reports. Are you happy with the progress? And then here's some new information that we've gotten from testing. Discuss the goal of the meeting and the outcomes that you need. So if there's a certain thing that you would like for your child, up front, this is what I would like to see. Can we make this happen? Do we have data to support maybe this need? Maybe we need to go back and do some more testing. Emergency plans or additional information that might be needed, other comments or concerns, and really go in, make that list, make that agenda, and really try to have your thoughts in order. Because I think if you have your thoughts in order, sometimes the and it's going to be emotional because it's your child, but you tend to get, I think, less emotional if you have all the things that you want to get through down in front of you, and you feel organized. I think you feel more empowered.
Yep, and then here's a quote. I'm not going to go through that. Mark, do you need us to wrap this up? Or you just, okay. So we're coming through just throwing this up there. You guys can read that. I don't need to read that. Nudging without shoving, shouters and loud pushers fire up emotions. We know that create a battle that becomes more important than the child. When we start moving away from that, we are moving away from the whole goal, which is the child. And that remembering that focus of a successful communication is having the best solution to the issue, and leaving the doors open for future communication. I cannot say that enough. Erin, we've talked about this. You are professionals and parents. You're in a marriage unless they're moving to another district. You are really in a marriage with each other. So you really don't want to burn those bridges, and you want to keep those doors open. And I also want to say too, at the end of the meeting, I just wanted to add this, the piece of that agenda, and that sun just moved right into my eyes. And I'm not complaining about the sun, but a part of that agenda too is I have been in some pretty heated meetings. However, I can tell you at the end, where everybody comes together and respects each other's time, it is honestly just that piece has really set the tone for the next meeting, and saying, you know what, I know we didn't get to everything today. I know we heated up, or addressed it. The motions got, out of hand or heated. Right. But that I still respect everybody's time at the meeting, and thank you for that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and yeah, assertion without aggression. You can be assertive, but it can be done in a way that's positive. You can be whatever you're requesting. It doesn't have to be this aggressive, negative way. It has to be something reasonable too. So if it's reasonable and done in a positive way, aggression is demanding something that is reasonable. That may not be reasonable, and just demanding and hitting the table isn't going to be enough. You can positively show the data and show that we need this for my child. And another important part of communication is to know when you're wrong and to calmly admit it, and that can really gain you a lot of points and a lot for your relationship.
Yes, definitely. We're just going to review. Effective communication should be calm, just like Erin said, respectful. We want a relationship build. We want it to be positive, based on facts, and transparent, honest, and open.
Yep. And, just in review, utilize your knowledge of the 4 types of language, methods used to communicate, cultural needs, listening skills, and pay attention to body language, perception, language, tone used, expectations, pay attention to all of that.
That's it. We're done. Sorry, we went 4 minutes over. And there's that QR code. Oh my, that sun is really attacking me. I keep moving and it keeps coming. So that QR code's there. If you want to go ahead and scan right now, you can do that, and you can get the evaluation. So with that being said, it's up to you, Mark. We can stick around for questions or I don't know if there's any.
Yeah, we can stick around for a couple minutes. Of course, the QR code is there, and then I put it in the chat again. The evaluation link is there if that's easier for anyone.
Good.
And we have, June 13th again is the next workshop, second Monday, 7 p.m. And I put the link in there to register for that workshop, or you can register for both and an individual guidance session if you want.
And that'll be excellent. That's going to be Understanding ADHD. Martha Lazay has a wealth of experience on ADHD, so don't miss that presentation. That'll be great.
Yep.
Got it. Doesn't look like there's any questions right now, but thank you, Tammy and Aaron. That was great. And by all means, I'm looking forward to seeing you next month again.
Oh, we were so happy to be here. We love it. We're going to miss when it goes away, Mark.
I know.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, hopefully we got some staying power. We have another series to schedule after this one. So
Good.
yeah, hopefully I'll see you for a while.
Okay. Yes, we are there. All right. Well, yeah, it looks like everybody's kind of hopping off. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks.
Great.
Have a good week.
You too.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.